I'm Amanda, and we are in the back of Cake Shop with Liz Phair, who miraculously is about to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Exile in Guyville. Can you believe it? It's been 15 years.
Actually, I kind of can.
I can't. It makes me feel old.
Well, how do you think it makes me feel? But it does feel like, it feels like a whole, like another life, like in the past, which is
I'm
kind
sure.
of, yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine going back and listening to those songs now must either feel very cathartic or very strange. I mean, what do you hear when you listen to the record now?
When I listen to it now, I kind of feel much more of the sadness that was in there than I did at the time. I thought I was sort of passing off my toughness and selling it, and like people bought it. But now listening back to it, I can see how totally vulnerable I was and how it's very clear that I was unsure of myself. It shows in a weird way. But that's endearing, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. So you've since returned to ATO for the reissue and for your new record. What was kind of what spurred the decision to return to an indie now?
Well, it was the first chance I could. It was the first time that I actually could. I tried to get off the major labels twice and was unsuccessful both times. And I really, I'd finished my contract, and I really wouldn't have been able to go to ATO if Capitol hadn't folded. It's not even a label anymore. So I got off then and immediately signed with ATO because I'd been talking to Dave. It's just such a cool label. It's such they're so supportive of creativity in a way that my experience with major labels, they're not. And it's just been huge for me. I'm just full of creativity. Like, I just made this documentary to go with the re-release of Guyville called Guyville Redux, which is me going back and talking to all those guys of Guyville 15 years later that I haven't spoken to. I had to track them down. It wasn't easy to find all these people and talk to them about and not all of them liked me. So it was kind of a weird journey for me to go back and really relive that whole scene.
Right. So do you think things are easier for women now? I mean, in Guyville, sort of in the music industry, do you think 15 years later, I mean, are you optimistic or not as much?
I think it must be a lot easier. Like, it's hard for me to know what it's like for a woman maybe just your age is just like, you know, I don't really know what it's like, but I think it must be because you have access to all this technology like GarageBand. You can make your records yourself, and so it must be easier, but I'm sure it's, from what I experienced, a lot of guys still in the music business, predominantly male. So that's never fun.
Right. It seems like men, generalizing wildly.
Oh, just go there.
But it seems like they do sort of talk about music in a different way, and it's almost like talking about sports. You know, I mean, the statistics are there, and I think that can be kind of alienating, you know, in a lot of ways. So I imagine that was something that you also experienced.
Yeah, and when I was thinking of how to direct the DVD, the documentary, my one major directorial decision, at least in terms of the form, was I had all the talking heads be the guys. So they have their names and like so-and-so is so-and-so, and they go back and forth. And then I cut, like just hard cut to the women. And I don't put their names underneath them or anything, and I let them talk about what the music meant emotionally, and they tell me personal stories because it's so different how they, you know, what they feel about the music. Women, it's very personal, it's very emotionally connected, and that's what I relate to the most. And the facts and the figures and the stats and all that kind of stuff, that's sort of the way the men process it. And it's not total. I think a lot of men.
Right, no, of course. And some women are big on, you know.
But I threw that stereotype right into mine. I was like, whatever. Sorry.
Right. So, I mean, would you consider Exile a feminist record?
Yeah, I probably would. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty much can I say fuck you? It was kind of a fuck you to like the guy scene of the time, because I felt like I'd been the girlfriend of the guys in bands, or I'd been at the parties, and my opinion wasn't really respected. Not even wasn't really, it definitely wasn't respected if I didn't have this sort of knowledge, this deep-seated knowledge like they had of like where bands came from and how they reformed and, you know, what music was derivative of what sound from the 60s. Like, then you had no opinion. And I knew my music from radio, basically, and from MTV, and they didn't respect that. So when I made Guyville, I really was kind of like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So could you talk a little bit more maybe about how your songwriting process has changed over the last 15 years?
I'll tell you what I am doing with the producers that I'm working with. I won't let them do anything they're comfortable with. It has to be a spontaneous, almost like I take these super talented people and then I say, hey, just play with me. Just play, experiment. And it usually takes them more than one song. So the first song we do, they'll be sort of producing it. And then the second song, I guess it's like a shell game. I slip them, they get tricked. And then they're just like, oh yeah, we could try that. And then it's spontaneous and it sounds a lot more like me, which that's sort of what I'm trying to capture at the center and then build out some of the more polished elements. But I want the center to be, I don't want to sing in key, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I get really frustrated as I sit down to write a song. My skills will come into play, which in a weird way deadens the emotion. It deadens the vulnerability. And I have to find ways to trick myself, like play on a different instrument or try different things. Because I don't have to worry about radio this time. I don't have to worry about it sounding right for any format. I can make it sound entirely wrong if I want to make it sound wrong. So the only thing I'm selecting for is some sense of having opened myself up, made myself vulnerable, exposed stuff that I don't feel totally comfortable with, or stuff that I wouldn't say to someone's face. And this is the first time that my surroundings, my context, have really supported that. So I think that's what people really respond to in music and in art in all forms. Somebody offers something up about themselves that maybe makes them feel weird or bad or strange, and everyone feels like, me too, you know? And that's the beauty. So I'm trying to find that.
Yeah, I feel like people tend to presume that Exile is your most personal record, maybe just because it's kind of the scrappiest. I mean, it's, you know, the lowest sort of production values in a way. But do you think that's true, or do you think...
Trick question, because like it's the most personal in the sense that I didn't expect anyone to hear it. So I was very comfortable saying whatever. But I've certainly written songs. Like on my last record, there was a song called Table for One that was about my brother's alcoholism, and I kind of put myself in his point of view. And that was unbearably personal. Like there are certain things that are hard for me to even sing. You know, like on White Chocolate Space Egg, Little Digger was about my son looking at the end of my marriage, you know, and from his point of view. Like, it seems to me in my later life, I've written songs from other people's point of view, and they're very personal, and they're almost more accurate than the stuff on Guyville was, because Guyville, I shoot my mouth off about anything. Like, you know, I'd say this, I'd say that, fuck, who cares? But I think later I tried to really go into someone else's point of view, and that's very personal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's challenging, I think. And
it makes me almost cry when I sing them because I feel the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Liz. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.